Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of OneTAKE, the video series where I sit down with friends and colleagues who are industry experts to discuss the future of work, life, education, culture, and more. Today, we're back in the world of RPA, this time with my friend Oded Karev, who leads the advanced process automation business for NICE. Previously, we'd explored the evolution and effects of RPA, but Oded has a different side of the tale to tell. We'll be focusing on how educating enterprises is the key to mitigating the perceived fear of RPA taking over, and what resources are out there today to help do just that. I also learned more about Oded's interesting personal background and how he's helping lead NICE into an exciting experience and service-centric future. Thanks again for tuning in. Now sit back, listen up, and enjoy this episode of OneTAKE. Hello again, and welcome back to OneTAKE. This week finds me back in an area of comfort for me, the robotic process automation space. And I'm thrilled to welcome an industry educator, visionary, and friend, Oded Karev from NICE. And before we get on to the questions, Oded, welcome. Welcome to OneTAKE. Tell us a little bit about your role at NICE, and then I want to get into understanding more about your background and how you came to have the role.
I'm the general manager of NICE APA line of business, stands for Advanced Process Automation, which pretty much makes me responsible for everything that is robotic process automation, robotic desktop automation within NICE. So I manage the business within NICE end to end, and quite an exciting time to do that in the last 3 years that I've been in this role.
Indeed.
The second part, you asked me how did I came about.
Yeah, let's go before you worked at NICE. You've been at NICE for about 7 years,
Yep.
Is that correct? And so you've been in the RPA, APA space for 3 years.
Yep.
So what did you start out as? What did you want to be when you grew up? And walk us through that. What did you go to school for, I guess? Let's start there.
So I was convinced that I'm going to be a psychologist, a therapist.
Okay.
And I went to school and studied psychology.
Interesting.
And then I went and had some clinical experience and worked on the field, and then came to realize that I'm a bit too energetic to be sitting in a room for 8 hours listening to someone else's problems.
Gotcha.
And kind of, as I gained the clinical experience, I understood that I need to do something else. So went to do an MBA as a career changer. In there, I was exposed to the world of strategy and corporate strategy, and from there directly to strategy consulting. I spent a long tenure with Accenture, doing strategy consulting to organizations, specifically in the areas of digital transformation, customer service transformation, customer journey transformation. So everything around the process redesign and the technology underlining how do you better serve your customers in mainly service providers, telcos, banking. So doing what is now called digital transformation or front office transformation. And from that, after 7 years, one of my customers who was the head of strategy in a large telco moved to be the head of strategy for NICE, gave me a call and said, why don't you cross the lines? So I joined NICE as director of corporate strategy, and I was helping the company with the growth strategy and around, again, the type of software that will enable the future of work within front offices, including our Igloo acquisition and everything that came about that, and how can we use process automation to enhance and boost the CSR or the customer service representative work and the contact center representative. And somewhere in the mid of 2016, where NICE have realized that there is a big market called RPA emerging. It's amazing to think that it's been only 3 years ago the market was so nascent versus where we are now. And NICE CEO came to me with an offer I couldn't refuse, saying, you did the strategy work saying how NICE have the best technology for RPA, and we already sold some RPA big deals. Why did you came and make it a real business for us? So I established the APA line of business and built a team and kind of skyrocketed from there.
That's outstanding. So there's so many different places to go off of that. I love that you started with psychology. One of my majors was psychology too, and I actually went and I took some courses that were in organizational social psychology. Fell in love with it because it was a marriage of strategy and psychology, and I think that's the thing that served me so well and has actually driven me in this world of work is to try to understand. The technology is intriguing, but the outcomes, what we're actually trying to achieve. Let's go back to So let's talk about RPA as a space and the evolution that we're seeing and seeing it go through. Because you just mentioned a few things. One, NICE in part got into the automation space through an acquisition. You bought a company called Igloo. What I think so interesting is there were sort of different origins to this, right? My starting point was back office. I was in transactional tasks in HR and finance, and that's in outsourcing. But that's where I got my start. I've now found myself in a situation where I'm very much in a sort of a whole office, front, middle, and back, but a lot of front office. Most of the RPA origin was more back office oriented. A lot of your peers in the space originated spending more time in the back office. Everyone's trying to serve the whole office now. NICE was really unique in that you started with a front office perspective because NICE was serving the front office in other lines of business. So how has that lens impacted the investment you've made, the stories you tell, and just the education that you've been so sort of core to over the last few years?
So I do think it draws a very clear line of where did you start from when it comes to RPA and process automation. And as you said, NICE came to it via the Igloo acquisition, but we didn't acquire Igloo for RPA.
Okay.
The Igloo acquisition was even before the RPA term was named by Pat Gary or anything around that.
Right.
NICE was proactively looking for softwares that would complement the portfolio, which is focused around the agent desktop, right? So everything that the agent do, from workforce optimization or performance management or call recording or speech analytics, and in that portfolio, the Igloo software that was doing process automation, taking away the mundane repetitive stuff from the agent work, giving the agent time to focus on conversation, value add, customer service, empathy, and this sort of thing. No one called it RPA back then, but that was what it was, right? It was a software saying I can put a client, we didn't call it a robot at the time, we could put a client on the desktop, and this client can provide you guidance in real time, and can monitor what you do in real time, and provide you feedback in real time, and can automate the mundane tasks in real time. Everything happens during a call. One of the big differences that NICE have versus other software, and I would call it good or bad, it's just a difference. It's everything, it's synchronic, it's real time, right? We automate in real time. You don't send it to a server robot and automate something sometimes later. Now, we can do it today once we expand it to the full end-to-end RPA world, and today we have customers who have the application server and they send tasks over there, but we came from, our origin is automating in real time, man working with machine. And the entire notion was around boosting performance, enhancing performance. And there goes everything we do. The NICE tagline, you're aware of that, automation for the people. Right. We are not looking at process automation as a tool purely for efficiency, to take away headcount, which is a lot of the back office RPA world has emerged from. We're looking at this tool as enhancing, boosting performance of employees. Now, once you have spare capacity, as a business, you can decide. You can use this spare capacity to decrease the headcount, or you can use this spare capacity to improve service level, or to improve SLA, or to improve performance, or to do whatever you want with it. But the idea is to give a tool, give a software that make employees outperform themselves.
No, that's perfect. And again, so many great places to go. It's interesting because that direction, that sort of the way that you told that story and the narrative. An organization, back to psychology again, an organization is an organism, and it can absorb this news in different ways. And in certain ways, the automation story has sparked fear, right? It has sparked a concern that jobs are going away, and that's the primary goal of everything that you and I and the industry has been working on. A different tweak on that story is, in the way that you told it, is it's enabling people. It's unleashing people to be great at what they're great at, and as a result, actually getting better outcomes because you want people to be focused on things like experience. The front office seems to be the perfect place to highlight that story, just because when they have free time, when they have more time to spend on the things that are valuable, they spend it catering to customers, right? Having empathetic calls, working on transforming service experience. So is that the way you see it too?
yeah, it all goes down to why you wake up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve, and what do you want to do, and how do you want to differentiate, and where do you want to take
Right.
your software, and from that it goes to how you build your team and how you put the ethos of what you do, and
Absolutely.
then how you build your roadmap, and then eventually everything emerged. Again, we without going to product specific, but this is where our automation finder came from, right?
Yeah.
We looked at, what are our biggest challenges of our customers? Where do they face? Why do so many automation program fail versus, we have a great software and some customers are so successful
Right.
and others are less so. And then once you start speaking to them, you understand they don't know where to start. So you said, how do I cater for that? And then you go with the machine finder. And
Right.
it same go to how we do marketing and how we think about that. And, what is our role in the market? As true market leaders, do we need to do something that is more hyped and more cool and more fun that people would watch? Or do we need to create content that would be interesting enough so people would also be educated and kind of lead the forefront of thinking and doing more thought leadership? Because you only have limited marketing fund. I mean, you're a CMO now, you want to have more and more funds, but eventually your boss, our boss, will come and say, this is what you have for marketing.
Absolutely.
And how do you make the best of it? Do I buy more and more LinkedIn paid search ads? Or do I start doing content, thought leadership, and hopefully people would find it valuable and you'll get the viral effect of that?
Right. So that's actually a tremendous segue to something else I want to talk to you about. And as I segue, I'll give a bit of background context. I think the adoption of automation technologies has not gone as well as a lot of us would have hoped because of lack of education or because of miseducation. And so one of the things I've been so impressed about from you and your team, from Karen Inbar and others at NICE, is the way that you tell the story. Both the way that you tell the story of how you work with existing clients, but also some of the content that you've put out to the industry. So I'm holding here a Robotic Process Automation for Dummies book. We'll put a link in the podcast post, and there's also links on the NICE website. I'm sure if you Google RPA for Dummies and NICE, you can find a free download for it. What you have here is a concise and extremely valuable primer to what is this stuff, and frankly, also a really fair and objective assessment of it. It isn't NICE selling NICE's stuff, right? It is a team of experts, passionate experts, putting their thinking together to help an industry understand this trend. So, what was the motivation for this? Because it's so darn good. And when it came out, man, my only regret was that I didn't do it. I was irked by that, but it's so cool that you did. So what was the background? How did you guys come to doing this?
Right, so first, thank you very much, and we are extremely proud of that, and a lot of other stuff we do around content marketing. But the notion is if you bring value, if you bring value to your customers via your software, they will expand. If you bring value through your marketing, customers will be drawn to you and get you as a trusted advisor and respect you as an SME, and may or may not buy your software, but at least you'll be invited to the table. And
sure.
Marketing is all about eventually generating leads, etc. So we said, are we going to be really against salesy and creating hype, or are we going to be more of a content and SMEs and thought leadership? And this is how we came about with the 4 Dummies, and we aggregated different experts from within NICE, worked with the publisher to write that, each one on his own domain. So my head of customer success did that part, and the technology guys did their part. And the reason we wanted to do that is that so many projects fail. So many projects don't go about the right way. And one of the reasons is that we're in a business of selling dreams, right? RPA sounds so cool. And it is so easy versus programming. So it's not a big IT project, it's a small robotics project. Yeah. But then customers underestimate the effort and it's not a 0-1. It has a tremendous ROI, but yes, there is a bit of a learning curve and an investment, and you need to know what you're getting into. And being honest with customer doesn't always pay off when your competitors come in and give a very aggressive pitch of, it's so easy, and once the customer would realize, it will be too late. Yeah. We choose the path of, we're going to be very honest with our customers. We're going to explain to them what they're going to go about, but we're also going to give them the confidence that we will be with them throughout the way, through stuff like that. We know what we're doing. We know how to get you through success. trust us and work with us this path.
Yeah, well, that's great. I was actually, so I've got a series of courses on RPA as well that are hosted on LinkedIn Learning, and I was sitting down to write the script for my Introduction to RPA course when this book came out. And it was great, but also really daunting because then I had this as a standard to work towards. So darn you, but thank you. And it was actually really interesting. I just got a comment from someone, a woman who'd taken my intro to RPA course on LinkedIn just last week, and she said, first of all, that she enjoyed the course. It was very sweet of her to reach out and say that. But her story was that she was a subject matter expert in a particular process area, right? So she knew that. She's probably been in this role for a long time, perhaps her whole career, knew the process. She had been invited to three meetings about what could be automated in her domain. Obviously, this is an RPA investigation discussion. She then, at a certain point, must have realized, I'm going to be asked this question a lot. I've got to go figure out what's going on. So she then must have Googled it, found my course, watched my Intro to RPA course, and said it was extremely helpful to her to understand what RPA is. So she's being asked in meetings where she's not been set up to succeed. She's just being asked, what can you automate? Because you know the process. She hasn't been educated, and so that's why I did my course. That's why you did this book, and it's also why I think, as you say, a lot of RPA adoption just isn't going as well as it could because the groundwork's not being laid. Yeah. And so it's, I love it as an asset. I can't wait to see whatever you're doing next because it's always very cool. But we really do need to keep educating. I mean, this was as you said, it feels like it's been a long time, but it's only been a few years. But this note came in last week, and these are people who are still struggling to figure out how this applies. So let's actually segue from there and talk about one of the other cool things you're doing, which is you're working with a professor of psychology, actually, yes. Professor Dan Ariely, out of Duke University.
Indeed.
And I'll let you explain sort of the backdrop for that and some of the key sort of themes that he covers.
All right. So after we published this and we asked, okay, what's next? A new fiscal year, a new marketing budget. What are we doing with that? And we wanted to continue the path of educating the market. And we asked, okay, so other than the ground rules, what is the problem our customers facing, and how can we cater for that, and what kind of thought leadership they're looking for? And we have identified what is the industry now called as the automation anxiety, right? The robots are out there. The robots are going to replace us all. The robots are going to change everything. Now, if you come from the trenches and you understand what the technology can do, both good and bad, and what are the limitations of technology, you understand that humans are going to be around for a long, long while. And even more so when your entire philosophy is man working with machine and putting robots on desktop to enhance performance versus replace them, that's kind of a belief that you want to nip from the bud, or you just want to mitigate that risk and give people confidence. And for that we said we need an authority, and it doesn't get more authoritative than Dan Ariely. He's a Wall Street columnist, over 10 million views of his TED Talks, and a very prestigious professor from the academia, Duke University, Duke Fuqua Business School, so on. And he is in the area of psychology and behavioral psychology, and not behavioral, so work environment psychology and economical psychology. Yeah. So we went and engaged with him, and we kind of told him what we can do, and we had a mutual discussion. He did some research around that. And the idea was to come with the psychological reasons of why people actually just need robots. Right? So when Professor Ariely comes and explains that people cut corners, and the reason they cut corners is not because they're bad or they want to twist the systems or they want to go about, it's because we give them contradicting KPIs. We ask them to do something very fast, and we ask them to do something very accurate. And you can't do something extremely fast and extremely accurate, and you need to balance between the two, and we don't tell them how to balance, so we don't give them tool to balance. So people naturally will be drawn to anything that is just more immediate, and fast is way more immediate than accuracy. So they do it fast, they cut corners, they see that nothing happens, they cut more and more corners, and eventually you have a compliance breach, you have steps that are being... And just pounding on the people, don't do that, and doing education is not enough because you expect them not to be human. Cutting corners when you need to balance KPIs is human.
Yes.
So if you have a robot that monitors in real time and help that for the key steps you don't want to be avoided, or that you have a pop-up or a compliance guidance or an automation doing that, you help the employee not to cut corners. Perfect. You can reduce boredom with automation. You can do a lot of cool stuff. So we're very happy with the work that we did with him. Some very cool videos that can be, again, found in the nice website, and a lot of good content, also aggregated in a book you can download. So.
And again, I think it's approaching it in a way that enterprises have needed it to be approached, but it just hasn't been, because the fascination with the technology has really dominated the narrative, the headlines, the airwaves. Whether it's that this stuff is so capable and it is exciting, or it's so capable and that's frightening, one of those two really has consumed most of the oxygen in the room for a while. So to take a look at it from the human perspective, the human plus robot is by definition a more powerful model, right? It enables you to do more because you're using the best of both of those worlds, and so it's exciting to see you work with Dan Ariely and put that information out there. So we're working with enterprises right now. We're educating them as best we can so that they understand the capabilities available to them. We understand them as a whole organism, right? You treat the whole patient and understand the psychology of the enterprise. What's needed next? How do we mitigate for the struggles and the stalls that we've seen? What are enterprises looking for that you and I, as educators and speakers on the topic, what should we be doing?
I think a lot of the things we see is just birth pains, right? It's the birth of the market, and a lot of organizations have ran into that without proper thinking and just play with it. It's also because of the very low barrier to entry, right? If you want to buy or you need to replace your ERP system, it's a tens of $1 billion project, both services and software, many years. Right. So you said, something, I might do a pilot or a POC and I'll pay $200,000 for that. For $200,000, you can have few robots and the services on top of that and have something automated in your environment. So customers, instead of just, doing a POC, they just went and did like a small project. Right. But these projects not necessarily have been well thought through, and they're not part of a bigger transformation, and therefore a lot of them are failing. Also, not all the technologies out there are mature, and again, without going into that, but not all RPA platforms that can work on 5 robots can work on 1,000 robots or 5,000 robots. So when organizations starting to scale, they see all the challenges of scaling in RPA, and this is another fear. And then you have all the fear and anxiety of unions, etc., because you just don't do the right change management. Right. And we haven't even gone about just selecting the right process. One of the discussions I have with customers all the time is, again, in discovery sessions, and they come in, we should automate this process, is the most painful one. Well, in our landscape, we have an analyst, and he sits like 3 hours once a week to aggregate the report from 20 different sources. Yeah. And it's like 3 hours and so many mistakes, and we got to have this report, and we want to automate that. Right. No, wait a minute. It happens once a week.
3 hours.
And it takes 3 hours. Yeah. Okay, it has how many steps? Like 400 steps that he grabs the data. It will take you 4 or 5 months to truly build an automation and test it. Yeah. And then all you saved is 3 hours. Not only that it's not the first process to automate, never automate that process. Right. Look for the process that has happening 10,000 times a day in your contact center, and you can save 10 seconds. Yes. And if you calculate that, it's a lot more than 3 hours. So selecting the right process, the automatable process with the right amount of steps, go through the right systems, and so on. So I think this is where we are now. Yeah. We need to explain that the discovery is important, selecting the right process is important, putting the long-term plan is important, change management is important. And yes, selecting the right vendor or technology is also important, but it's just one component out of a bigger chain of a transformation. And thinking in this term, RPA shouldn't be used as a tactical tool, or it can be used as a tactical tool, but then don't expect it to be anything else. Right. If one process, you want to solve a problem, you bought in a consulting company, you bought 5 robots and you solved the problem, that's fine. But overall, if you want the true benefit, the true ROI, you're building a center of excellence.
Right.
Don't build a center of excellence, invest in all that, buy an ELA, and then do very tactical projects.
Right.
Think of the digital transformation. And for that, and we need to move the market from the high volume, low value, I would say, which let's buy a lot of small deals, low value deals, and get tactical value into, we're in the world of digital transformation, right? Or our customers are finding it very hard to differentiate. How do you differentiate today? If you're a telco in the US, everyone have unlimited, right? How you differentiate if you're a bank? You know, your interest rates and everything is being regulated. How do you differentiate? And then you see everyone try to differentiate on service, on experience.
Right.
Well, giving great service, great experience, meaning you need to release your workforce to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need the underlying technology for that. You need the support. So everything channels into that direction of bigger transformations.
Right. No, completely agree. I mean, and that's the world I happen to find myself in now, and it's the automation as an infrastructure that enables really the identification of data that you can rely on to then shape and design, and the time of teams to use that data and to evolve what you're doing to create great experiences.
Sure.
Because you're right. Because the only way you're going to win in the future, especially in these established industries, is to create a better experience, is to solve problems for clients in interesting ways, to understand them better, to be proactive, to predict what they might need, and design better services for them. And so that's what's so exciting, is that we have been in the last few years really just sort of setting the stage for what's coming, where a psychology degree applies more than we perhaps knew it might, just because we're studying the people we're serving, and we're studying the organisms and enterprises that we're changing to create that future of work. So, well, there you have it. Oded, thank you so much for coming to Tampa to visit me, for taking the time to join me on OneTAKE. And like we'd mentioned, we'll put links to the RPA for Dummies guide. We'll put links to the Dan Ariely videos on the NICE website on the OneTAKE website. And we ask everyone to check them out. So thanks again.
Always a pleasure, Ian.